Welcome to Arnie's Class Podcast. I'm Arnie Aniel. I'm an HR development consultant, an international public speaker, a workshop facilitator, a coach, and an educator. Life is a great opportunity, and we all learn life lessons every day. This podcast is all about those lessons. Lessons like gratitude, confidence, happiness, mindset, and a lot more. Learning without action is information. Learning with action is transformation. Join me, learn, and transform yourself into a better you. Life mates, in this episode, I'm going to talk about modern change management or simply change management with my very special guest. But why it's difficult to change, or why is it so hard for us to change, even for organizations? And when we talk about change, people often resist change. It's rare for people to just say yes right away. If they hear that something is going to change, normally it's a no. And I myself personally, for me, if there's something that's going to change, I also have this different kinds of thoughts running in my head with this change, what will happen. I believe it boils down into VUCA: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Because when we talk about change, those four elements or four factors, if you want to say it, call them factors, will always be there. But we are in uncertainty at the moment. And it's been 2.5 years that we are in this kind of situation. No one knows about the future. And I believe we are in a constant position of changing. You're not the same as yesterday. And I don't think you will be exactly the same tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. So how can we embrace change? How can we navigate through the changes that happen, sometimes too much changes? With my special guest, I'm sure you're going to learn a lot about change. Life mates, listen and learn. Life mates, welcome to a new episode of Arnie's Class. In this episode, we're going to talk about modern change management with my very special guest. She is a global lean change agent and change hacker, a community lead for lean change management, a host for perspectives of change, and a business agility coach. And another one is she is an authorized IC Agile instructor. I'm sure she is more than enough to talk about change. So please welcome my very special guest, Sarika Kharbanda. Sarika, welcome to Arnie's Class.
Thank you, Arnie. Delighted to be here.
Yes, I thank you for this time. And of course, I'm sure you're going to share a lot to the listeners about change management.
I'm hoping to, for sure.
Yes, so now let's start the ball rolling with my first question. Why do you think people always resist change?
That's a tough one, but okay, let's give it a try. Let's not even look at, I would say, change or resistance to change in an organizational context. Let's just look at change from a social context where, someone brings change to you and me. Do you think we'll be always up and running and jump on a change that's brought to us? Well, I personally feel it's just natural, first of all, for us to react in the way we do to change as any human being would. And especially if that happens to us in an organization, it looks like it's resistance, but I think there's a lot of meaning and value in what happens when people push back change, which is what we think is resistance. And my personal take on that would be there's always something happening in people's minds. Maybe we are already going through a lot of change in the organization, or we have a lot of personal change happening in our life. Maybe we are just not ready for that change right now. And that forces us as a human being to push back that change. And we as change agents interpret that as resistance, when what we should really do is sit down with those people and understand, why are you pushing back? What is it that we can do to help with that? Or maybe they just don't like us, or maybe they don't like the change. Maybe they're just tired of so much of spaghetti change that we throw in an organization at people. There's one
That's right.
change,
Yes.
other, and you know how change programs run. It just keeps coming, bombarding on and on and on, and then we are all like, maybe it's just change fatigue. But it's really important for us to understand why people are resisting it, and I take that as positive insights for me as a change agent to understand why people resist that change, if we think they do, because it's just our perspective that people are resisting.
That's
Maybe
right.
it's not their perspective, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that's how I would look at that, as maybe let's not see that as resistance to change, but look at that as how can we as change agents respond to that resistance to change.
Then my follow-up question is, how will you as a change agent, how are you going to approach those people? You already said that we have to understand them, talk to them. What will you, in your experience and background, how would you approach those people in order for them to be more open to changes?
I think there are a lot of philosophies that I could put out there. One key philosophy that I personally use as a change agent is empathy, because we need to understand the reason for that pushback. So I would definitely sit down with those people to understand, hey, what do you think about this change? What do you think are the pros and cons? What do you think is happening around you? And understand the reasons as to why they believe this change is maybe not right for them, or maybe it's just not the right time for them to change right now, or even look at a piece of change. So sitting down with those people to understand, get their feedback, to then allow me as a change agent to co-create that plan with them and say, okay, maybe if it's not the right time, when do you think we could do this, or we could come back? I would even give people an option to opt out. If they're not ready for the change, they're not ready, because we just need to wait. I mean, think of the last 2 years, right? The turbulent times we've all
Ah,
gone
yes.
through. I mean, not talking too much about those, but in some way and some spaces, we've all seen resistance to something or the other. Even for people to, adapt to a new way of working, there's of course resistance. The fact that we were pushed back into everybody needs to work from home now. You think it
Right.
was easy for everyone to work? Not at all. I would say every individual globally was struggling with different challenges, but every organization, every family was understanding what's happening. How do we help each other? And I think when we bring that empathy and understanding to understand what is an individual's pace of change and the reason for not changing or pushing back change, that's where real transformation or real change starts happening, when we start to connect with those people.
It's still the human connection. Yes,
Definitely.
still the human connection. Sarika, if I may ask, what is your most successful experience working in an organization facilitating change?
Hmm.
You don't have to mention the company. If it's just mention like this company of 500 people, and then what happened? What did you do? Why the change was needed?
So I think even before responding to that, Arnie, I would say, well, how do we define success?
There you go. Yes, of course. That's right. Maybe a full
So,
implementation of the change that the
oh,
organization wants to happen in their company or in the team.
perfect. So if that's the definition of success, I can definitely think of a couple of departments in a very large multinational organization, a financial institution that I've been working with, and a lot of my experience goes with financial institutions that I've worked with globally. And I would say a number of their departments transforming from a very siloed way of working to a more collaborative way of working. And adding up to that collaboration would mean not just having the terms, let's say the jargon terms of what collaboration includes, but the fact that we are all there to work with trust, in trust with each other, and we are able to bring in constructive conflict, to bring that up and help each other to move forward together as a team and think of themselves as one single team. rather than think of you as a vendor, me as a customer, that as another department, but all of us as one cross-functional team working together, I would say, and then them delivering products into the market, pretty much when needed, creating a lot of business value for the organization that they're all working with. And I would think that was successful in the sense that when we started off the journey, of course, there was resistance. Of course, there were allies for the change. And people in different departments function very differently. So some that pushed back, some we understood, sat down with. And the ones that pushed back, we gave them a lot of time when they were ready to change. So like I mentioned earlier, give people the option to opt out. So we did even that for a department as large as, I would say, 2,000, 2,500 people.
Wow.
And yeah, and we said, you're not ready, and we're okay, you're not ready. In fact, to another organization where we were getting HR to transform from where they are to where they are today, it's interesting when we talk of functions like HR, marketing, and these functional transformations, because agility is not just about, or transformations are not just in the IT space, right? They have to be end to end in an organization.
Correct.
And
I agree.
Yeah, and when you talked about my introduction, you mentioned about the business agility aspect, and I think to attain that business agility, you need these supporting functions without which no business or no IT department can really sustain. So I would say when these transformations that I started to enable happened also in departments like HR, where even the simplest thing of, a simplest accomplishment was, let's just visualize where our bottlenecks are. As simple as that. It's so profound yet so simple, because people were like, oh, but what is the benefit that visualizing this on a wall is going to give us? Or in today's world,
that's right. Yes.
Putting your workflow on a tool like a Miro or a mural. But the aha that you get with such accomplishments with people involved in that is amazing. Then to hear their feedback that this is so strong, we can see where we are bottlenecking, we can see why we are stuck, we can now understand how to move forward and collaborate with the rest of the organization in a better way. And I would say all of those are small successes that lead to, of course, larger transformations. And going back to this larger implementation that I was talking about, so yeah, some departments resisting initially, but then jumping on the transformation after 10 months of seeing how the rest of the organization is transforming, and having the allies or people who would jump to change, almost like yesterday, and they were like keen to jump to change. For them, I think it was maybe in a 3 to 4 months time span, success showed up, and they were already working and sparking ideas and changes in less than 3 to 4 months, which was amazing. I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Then I want to know, what do you think is the most critical factor for that particular organization that you work with, and you said that it was very successful? What do you think a particular factor that made it really successful? Although there was, like, of course, resistance, and then you said some of the departments opt out, and then it took them 10 months. But what do you think was that factor that, yes, it worked?
Well, there are, I think, a couple of factors, I would think, but one key factor that most of us talk about in change management, and that is what brings the focus, especially in the modern change management piece, I would say, is change happens with the people impacted by the change, and it's not at the people. Now, generally in traditional approaches to change, we are almost throwing change at people, and we expect them to change no matter what they're doing. And I think that's a little not so human, because we are ready when we are ready. And if you want a human being to change, like you rightly said earlier, it's the connection. When I connect with that piece of change, I will change, but I need the time and space to connect with that change. And if as a change agent, we go to people and say, hey, this is the new brilliant sparking change, and we're going to go crazy about this, and we should all change yesterday, well, that doesn't really go well with people, right?
That's right. So, yes.
So in the example I was sharing with you, I would say we didn't throw change at people. We discussed the change with the people who were going to get impacted. We asked for voluntary, responses saying, hey, who would like to onboard this first? Do you think you want to wait and watch? So we give people the option to choose whether they're on board that change or not. Start with the people who are on board, create that change with those people and see how the change unfolds, because we don't know what we don't know. And
Exactly.
as change unfolds, everybody else is watching and they're like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's the learning. And we were almost always transparent about how the change is progressing. What is the failure? What is the setback we are seeing? What are we learning? How are we inspecting and adapting continuously? And the fact that this plan that we started with is no longer the plan. It's changed 100 times now, right? It is going to evolve. It's
That's
an
right.
emergent space. And then get the next set of people to kind of volunteer and say, hey, I want to be a part of that great stuff that you've been doing. So why not? So I would say the influence piece becomes the second most important thing, because once the change goes viral, people start to inspect and adapt. And they'll be like, hey, I want to be a part of this too. So doing change with the people impacted by the change. Second, bringing change bringing influence as a part of change. So influencing the rest of the organization and not trying to do change at the whole organization, because that generally doesn't work. I mean, it's the technology laws of innovation, the diffusion curve that we talk about, right?
Yes, that's
And
right.
not the diffusion curve. And you just have to work with the innovators and early adopters, and the rest of the organization will decide how it wants to inspect and adapt with you. And for those who do not want to be a part of the change right now, we gave the option to opt out. And then they asked for change, which brings me to the final piece of change, which is people want to pull change and you don't want to push change. So that's the overall outcome we were looking for.
That's nice. Yes, that's right. That's right. But do you think it's more difficult if the employees or the leaders who are actually resisting change?
I think it's a mix of both, Arnie. There's no silver bullet, I would say, in that. But I would definitely say that the leaders should be on board first, because they're almost always the ones who think that the employees should change. And my personal take is it's the change starts with I. And if the I is missing, it's not always you should change. I mean, even in the
Yeah,
social
that's right.
space, right?
Yes.
Look at how things work. I mean, somebody says, oh, okay, the new rule is 50 people and not more in a party that you give in today's world. And then see what happens after that, right? Need I say more? Uh, but the point is, if you're making a guideline, you know, we need to stick by it too. So if you want people to be a part of a change journey, you need to include yourself and not just support the journey. I think support is a misleading word. You need to be committed to that journey. So I would say it should be a mix of both, which is more difficult to say, but the leaders should definitely want to be a part of this journey and be committed to it. And definitely say it out loud that change starts with me. I'm going to change and I'm going to make sure the environment is ready for the rest of the organization to change.
Very well explained. Yes, I totally agree. Especially, I change because sometimes we expect people to change, but I think it's easier to change yourself than to change others first.
In fact, I think we can't change others. So if I have to change you, I can only influence you. I
That's
can't
right.
change you.
Yes.
Arnie will decide for himself if he's aligned with Sarika's line of thinking and if he wants to be a part of that thinking. And maybe your value system allows that. If it doesn't, you're probably not going to. But yeah.
Yes, agree. Sariko, I asked you about a success implementation of change. How about those who fail to implement change? Why? What do you think is the challenge, or why do you think some organizations they fail to implement change or changes in their organization?
So I have a very different take on this, no matter what certain book texts or things might say. Again, I'm not fully aware of what might be there in the literature around today. But here's what I would say. First of all, one, what is failure? Right? Now, if I'm defining the fact that we need to try something out and then see if it works, And if the failure of that try or that experiment itself is a good feeling of success, is that a failure? It's not. For me, it's a success because it was an experiment which was meant to fail today so that we do not fail tomorrow. And I think that's a positive sign. So would I consider that as a failure? Nah. But to your overall question, why do change implementations, for example, that we hear around us have failed? I would come back to the point that really brings in success. And that is maybe change is being done at people and not with the
the
people in
people.
fact. Yes. And I think that is the key factor, because the moment I throw change at people, we will all be creating mitigation strategies to overcome resistance and all of that. And we'll be really busy, but we'll be accomplishing nothing. So I think that then leads us to a rag status of, okay, this is in the red and this has failed. Well,
Same. I'm sure you will totally agree that COVID-19 has brought changes in the workplace, in organizations, and even in our personal lives. With this very challenging time, what do you think? Maybe let's go personal first. Since I think you're the guru of change here. Let's start with the personal. What do you say to the people if they want to really like adapt to what's happening now? Everything is online. People are meeting, working, but in different places. So what do you think? How can they change or adapt to these changes?
I would probably say just having an open mindset is what people might want to be. Yeah, just being open to that. Experimentation is what I look for, because I think in today's world, and this is a post-internet world, which has generated a lot of complexity. We talk of interconnectedness, not just in organizations, but like you rightly said, the last 2 years, it's just shown us that the amount of complexity around us is huge,
Oh,
or chaos
yes,
to start with, where we didn't know how to act to start with.
that's right.
So I would say if people can just be open to trying out new ideas in today's world and understand clearly that it is probably going to be a norm to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's what I use as one of my mantras, because we don't know what we don't know. So just be comfortable with unknown spaces and be ready to experiment and see what comes out of it. That, I think, is an approach that a lot of the people I coach today, it's working with them, but it takes a lot of time. It's not an overnight change, Arnie. It's not that somebody who's used to doing things in a fixed way and you just tell someone, okay, we're just going to go experiment and
That's
change.
right.
It takes courage. It takes a lot out of you as an individual to build that mindset. And it's not an overnight thing. And I mean, depending on where you are in that journey, if you've, juggled a lot of these unknowns in your current workspace or social or personal space, then you know what I'm saying with that. But I think otherwise it gets a bit tricky. So my only advice would be open to experimentation, because we don't know what we don't know.
That's right. And I really like what you said, that be comfortable of being uncomfortable, because I think that's one way of not just surviving, but thriving, especially during this time. I think that's the
Perfect.
word there. Yes. So what will you say now to the organization? Because that's one, as I said, we started with the person. How about with organizations? And nowadays, a lot of people are doing hybrid meetings, and some people are at home, some people are at work. And, especially at home, a lot of distractions, babies around. The fridge is just like 1, 2, or 3 steps away from your table with a Zoom meeting. You can eat all the time or drink all the time. The TV is there, the Netflix, all the distractions. So what will you suggest to organizations in order to really facilitate all these changes that's happening? I think almost every day something will change. Something is happening.
Mhm. I would say specifically these 2 years have taught us that authenticity is key.
Oh,
And
tell me about it.
and there is no point in having two faces, one for the work and one for the personal view. I think I think it is time we realize that there is just one human being and it is okay. So what if your kid is crying or jumping on the bed behind you, and it's okay. Technology is giving us a lot of features anyway. You've got Zoom backgrounds and all of these other things. So if someone feels uncomfortable with just those kind of things, fair enough. But in today's world, in a lot of my coaching sessions or work sessions, I make it safe for people to say, hey, I'm distracted today, this is happening and that is happening, and let's check in with that. It's really important. And I think one has to have the courage to be authentic and not try and have, two different views.
Yes.
So how does one facilitate that change? I think by being authentic, and organizations should promote authenticity in organizations. And I would say just have the courage to be authentic. So courage and authenticity would be my two key things.
Wow. As I listen to you, Sarika, from my very first question, it's really the human touch that you are really telling and sharing with us, which I think it's very nice and it's really needed, especially during this time.
True.
And what kind of leaders do you think can really be the change agent, the catalyst in organization? Because I'm sure you've met different kinds of leaders, but what kind of leaders specifically that you think can really thrive and be successful during this time?
Goes back to all I've said. I'll probably sum it up in a phrase that I like from Anais Nin. I'm hoping I've pronounced her name correctly. And the way she says is, life shrinks and expands in proportion to your courage to make change.
Oh, I think, Sarika, you deserve to, I mean, the listeners deserve to hear that one more time.
All right, I'll give that a shot. Life shrinks and expands in proportion to your courage to make change. And this is something, and at least that's my remembrance of the quote. Again, if somebody else has quoted this, no unintended effects there, but please feel free to change the quote too. I think leaders who are able to create that space for themselves, to be able to have the courage to make change for themselves and their parts of the organization, so that overall the organization, which is obviously much more than a sum of its parts, can then be courageous to make change. I would say those are the kind of leaders I would look at, who probably, going back to a statement I said earlier, are comfortable with the uncomfortable so that they can engage people to be in that space.
Nice. I really like that. Shrink and expands based on how you're willing to have the courage to change, to bring change. I think that's really applicable and relatable. Sarika, we've been talking about change, or change in organization, change personally. If you can share 3 simple steps or probably principles or factors that you think people and organizations can do in order to implement change successfully, what are those 3 steps or principles or factors? It's however you call it. Whether 3, maybe 5, or even 10, we are we are all ears.
Okay, cool. So let's say I'll call them the universals of change. And this is how Jason Little, the author of Lean Change Management, calls it. And I love the way he puts it out there. And I would in no sequence, and am I saying this in, but here's how the 5 universals of change might look like. Have a shared purpose, a shared cause and purpose over creating a false urgency or a feeling of certainty and urgency. I would say that's one. Second, have meaningful dialogue with those impacted by the change than just broadcasting communications at the people who you want to change. The third universal, I would say, would be experimentation over executing tasks. A fourth universal might be response to change over just blaming resistors to change. And last but not the least, which I've said many times in this conversation already, is co-creation over trying to get buy-in for a change from the people impacted by the change. So to sum it up, I would say it's all about change with the people impacted by the change. So do change with the people, continuously inspect and adapt while you are implementing this change with the people impacted by the change, and be authentic and be congruent is really important for
Yes.
us in the space of change.
Congruency. Yes, that's right. That's right. I love it when you always say and emphasize about with people, because I think, like, I myself work as a consultant for other organizations, and some of the leaders, they just want it to be like, this is what I want. I said, yeah, that's what you want, but is that needed by the people in the whole organization? It's, if it's only you, I don't think people will just like just say yes to that. I mean, it's with the people, just like what you said, Sarika. You can only have those changes with the people, not at the people, or else the resistance, I think, will go
Exactly.
explode.
And then we will just say they are resisting.
Any worst experience, Sarika, of working with a company where this is like chaotic, and then I know you, just like what you explained earlier, it depends on how we define success, how we define failure. But have you experienced like this organization went chaotic, like everywhere is chaos, and then, oh no, it's impossible, or it didn't really happen, nothing happened. They wanted to be like this, but it's just like, no, no way. Do you have any that kind of experience?
Well, I would say, yeah, maybe I should say yes to that question. I'm just thinking. Yeah, I think I will say yes, but will I call it my worst experience? No. I definitely would say I think it was not good for the organization to push people. And I actually took my stance because, like I said, congruency is key. And I want to align at any point with, my own mantras of how I want to bring about change and how I do not want to bring about change. That's more important. So I ended up stepping out of that organization because I did not align. But does that make it my worst experience? No. But interestingly, after 8 months, I did get a call from the MD of that organization saying, we should have realized you're right. We should not have thrown change at our people because, well, I think they got affected in a big way. There was a lot of attrition. People didn't like working. It did not become the greatest place to work that they wanted to make it. So things went in a very negative direction, as was not expected. But the fact that I had suggested that you might end up with unintended consequences did come up, and then they were like, okay, could you come back and coach us back again? And then I was like, yes, now I think you are ready. So would that be my worst experience? No, but I think it was not great for the organization. And you just want to realize that it's not throwing change at people because you don't know how people are going to behave. It's
That's right.
important to understand your people. And if you want them to be a part of the journey, bring them along, right? And you can't do that alone. You can do that only together.
That's right. That's right. You know, when you said that they invited you back, it reminded me of the saying that when the students are ready, the teacher will be there.
Yes. It's brilliantly put, Arnie. I love that.
Yes. Of course, I cannot miss talking about VUCA when we talk about change. And I'm sure a lot of people out there already thinking, what did you say, Arnie? But those people in the corporate world, I'm sure they are very much aware of the VUCA. And I will give you the honor to say that what's VUCA and what does it have to do with change?
Sure. So VUCA really stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And that is, I think, what we should we say suffer with in today's world?
Maybe.
Or should we say we have the luxury to have VUCA in today's world, which was probably not there earlier. I think it's it's a perspective. It's like half glass half full or half
Yes,
empty,
that's
right?
right. Yes.
How do you look at it? So for the optimist that I am, I'm always looking for opportunities. So I would say it's a glass half full, right? I can still fill up the other half.
Okay.
Anyway, so to your question, how is that then related to change? And I think given all what we've just talked about, and not too far away, 2.5 years or now growing in that direction have shown us the complexity, the ambiguity, the I don't know what I don't know, and how do we navigate this complex world or regularly changing, uncertain world. And sometimes I actually feel maybe it is weird that we say that it is only post internet that the VUCA has come in. I think it was already there. We just didn't understand that, things are always that way. And if we go back in our social evolution or a human evolution, we'll see that as human beings, we are very good in inspecting and adapting in our personal lives. Then why does it become such a big thing when we put it to organizations and change? So I would say change and VUCA have been inherent all the time. And it's just natural for someone to think that, okay, there's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. And what does that mean? Yeah, we are where we are today. Let's start where we are. And we are going to be something different tomorrow. We don't know what that different is, but it's emergent change and we'll find out.
That's right. That's right. We're on a constant change.
Yes.
I
Constant
think,
change journey all the
yes,
time.
I think that's the only permanent thing in this world, change.
Yes.
And if you don't change, you'll be left out.
And it really depends how much does one want to change. And there is no fixed bar or, an indicator that, okay, you have to change 5 points by tomorrow. Well, we don't know. I might change 5 points by tomorrow, or I might change just 1 point by tomorrow. It depends on my pace of change. And that is different for every individual, department, or organization.
That's right. That's right. Yes, totally agree. My next question, Sarika, I'm sure this is, how would I say with this question, but I really want just to ask you because I think it's the same with changing your habit. I've heard many, many times that they said it will take 21 days to change a habit, which for me personally, I don't really believe in that because for me, it takes just a minute to make the decision and stick to that. And that will bring change. In your experience and working with these different kinds of leaders, organizations, do you think how much the organization of people need, how long in order to have that change or to have the change happen?
I love that question, Narni. So we have so many theories around this, right? We have the 10,000 hours, we have the 20 hours, and like you rightly said, we have the 21 days. And I'm sure there are so many more. I've probably not read all those, but yeah, these are the more popular, bouncy ones that are all around us. Yeah. Let me answer that question a little differently. I'll talk a little about my personal journey, and maybe that will that hopefully answers your question. So there was a point in my life, and I would say that is 17 or 18 years ago, okay, approximately that time, where I was hit by a lot of change happening in my part of the organization that I was working in, and also a bit in my personal life. And I realized at a lot of times that I was being biased, I was being biased to this and I was being biased to that. I was almost always jumping on to this and, hey, I like that person. So maybe that person's, whatever he or she says is, the right thing. So, your biases start to show up. And then I was facilitating a conversation many years ago, same time, 17, 18 years ago. And I was like, I don't think I'm doing justice to this facilitation because I'm getting even more biased.
Oh.
That actually triggered me to think about myself. And I said, okay, let's stop, okay, and step back and look at this context with me not being in the context, and let me look at it as a third person. How would I see this? And as I started to unveil different aspects of that context, I would say, I figured that it's not just biases. I was also struggling with a lot of the values and principles that I held very dear to me. And I had
Oh.
this internal conflict and struggle that, do I want to continue to work with this thing, or how do I navigate that internal struggle? Because there are internal conflicts that all of us go through as individuals, but how many times do we stop and reflect whether we are doing that for societal purposes or whether we are doing that just for us? Who is that really making happy at the end of the day? And I realized I was not happy, and happiness was key to me. And with that reflection, I would say, I started myself on this journey where at the end of every day at 9:30 p.m. in whichever time zone I am in, today I can say that time I didn't know there were time zones that I would talk about, but okay.
Okay.
I actually said every day at 9:30 p.m. at night, I'm going to spend with myself, invest time, 30 to 45 minutes on a sheet of paper, putting down, what do I value? How was my day today? What challenges did I face? What did I see? What went well? Like you do a retrospective today with teams and departments. I started doing that for my everyday. What did I celebrate? What did I learn? Where are my values? What are my non-negotiable values? A lot of this stuff, like personally hacking your own values, emotions, your own journey, and creating that journey with yourself. And to be honest, give or take 3 or 4 months since the past 17 years, I might not have done well on that journey. But I think overall, I've sat with myself every day until today, 9:30 p.m., and I still do this. Of course, I've evolved from that time
Wow.
until today. Now, does that mean I took 21 days? Does that mean I took 10,000 hours? Does that mean I think it's a personal journey? And personally, as a human being, I feel one just needs to commit to it. I do not know the brain sciences behind it, what happens. But for the kind of person I am, I feel if I'm committed to making a change happen, then my soul and my skin is in it. And that I think would apply to any human being, because if you feel you want to change, you will change. And that is the time for you to change. And yeah, so that's my journey there.
Wow,
And
that's
with that,
inspiring.
so was
Nice.
that again, it's 17 to 18 years, Arnie. So I don't know if that answers the 10,000 hours or anything else, but I think you just need to commit to yourself that you want to change.
You made me think of a follow-up question. Listening to your journey, and because I think another word or another topic with change is procrastination. Because when you
Mm,
mention about commitment, I know a lot of people, they acknowledge, Ani, I want to change. And I always tell them, you want to change, but you're not doing it. And no one can make you do it except yourself. So you have to think, what is it? So, Sarika, what's your take on this? For those people, like, okay, the others, they are aware that they need change. The others, they are not even aware that they need to change, but they keep on procrastinating and procrastinating. So what's your take on this, and how will you talk to these people?
hmm.
Now I'm giving you
Done,
that.
we should have done a rehearsal of all these. This is nice. Let me think. First of all, I think I would say procrastination is normal. All of us as human beings would do it in some way, form, or the other, right? It's natural for people to do that. Um, how would I? It's a difficult one. How would I do that? I have no idea.
Well, maybe my question, I'll make it. What made you commit to that 9:30 of me time, being with myself, talking with myself, and thinking, what do I celebrate? What is it that I did good, did well today? What is it that made me happy, energizes me? So what made you commit to that, Sarika?
That's an easy one now because I know myself, right? Because I know myself, I can answer
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's right.
I think it's just the inner me and the kind of person I am. And I know that if I know my willingness to make things happen. And I'll probably go back to the point that you, or the word that you used earlier. It's about being self aware. The fact that I started becoming self aware that, oh, I'm getting biased now. I'm falling into this trap. Oh, I should not be doing this. The fact that I started to realize these aspects of myself, I I definitely wanted to be on a journey to improve. And I think it is about understanding that you're not perfect. And no human is
Oh,
perfect. We
yes.
all come with our imperfections. And then we choose to strive to perfection. And all that is great. But it was important for me to define early on in my journey, what kind of a person do I want to become? So I knew I had issues. I had started seeing them and I was like, yeah, but I'm definitely not going to compromise on these values. So, like I told you, one organization that I stepped out of because I just saw my values not aligning there. And I was like, integrity is key for me. And if I'm going to lose that, I don't want to be a part of this. So, I think it's about how you as an individual can commit to your own journey and know yourself. So, be self aware. What made me do that? I think I would say the importance of being a better me and being a more transformative me actually made me, say it's time to start this kind of a journey. Did I know I would evolve to be like I am today? Of course not. I didn't know.
Ah,
I
that's
just
right.
started it and I saw no reason to stop that journey, which is why I'm still on it. And I think every day, so it started with a small piece of paper and then it became like a big chart paper. And then A3 sheets came into existence. So I was like, okay, let's go A3. Now it's on my iPad or it's on my wall. And yeah, be
Oh,
creative.
wow.
That's me.
Yes, that's right. Wow, that's nice. Sarika, we're almost at the end of our conversation. And there are some questions I always ask my guests. And with everything I've heard, I'm very interested to hear what will be your answers. And the first one is, with all your knowledge and experience in change or changes and the journey that you shared with us, what is the greatest lesson you've learned as a person?
Be authentic, be yourself.
Wow. Very concise, very clear. Be authentic, be yourself. Nice.
Yes.
Wow. That's, I think that's powerful. I think because you cannot be someone else. You can just be
And
you.
and you shouldn't be anyone else because that's not you.
That's right. And my follow-up question on that is not my regular question first, because when you said be authentic, be you, what message will you give to these young people out there who like still they don't know, they don't even know who they are? How do you find yourself? How do you find the authenticity?
Yeah, I would go back to my journey and say change always starts with I. So let's start to be self-aware, figure yourself out. The more you know yourself, the more you will understand others. So I would say being self-aware and then being aware of the other and the context in which you are in. So these three things is what I would say is important for anybody today.
Nice. I'm sure as a change agent, you've made a lot of decisions in life. But can you share one particular decision that you made in the past and has a huge impact of who you are now?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I'll give you some time, Sarika.
Oh no, maybe I can go back. So on a professional front, I'll go back to this story I just shared with you, right? Where I figured that the values that I'm seeing in this organization, and as projects were unveiling themselves and the way they were working, and those just didn't align with my values, and I didn't see congruence coming up, or I felt my integrity was going away. I would say the decision I made then to step out definitely had a profound impact on the person I am today and the kind of decisions I make today, because it's important to know where you draw your line. And it's important to know what you will say no to, which I think culturally, and I'm sure you will agree, being part of the Asian cultures, everything is not a yes. You have to know where to draw the line and say no in a most respectable, authentic way. And I would say that experience probably has had a profound impact on me.
Wow, excellent. Yes, of course. But sometimes people are very uncomfortable saying no, especially in Asian contexts.
Yes, I know that. And you know that. We had that conversation, I think, when we first met. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And Sarika, my last question. If you or someone else is going to write your life as a book, what will be
Wow.
that? Yeah. What will be the title of the book and what kind of book will it be?
Huh. You've been asking me a lot of very tricky questions, Arnie.
I always hear that every time I ask my guests.
Okay. No, but this is a really good, very powerful question. So if someone would write a book about me, what will it be about? What kind of a book you say it will be, and
Yes.
what will be the title? Hmm. Let's just say, yeah, I'll go. Yeah, I think I know what I want it to be. I would say it should be courageous, be you. That should be the title of the book, and it should probably describe my life's journey. Yeah.
Wow. Is there a particular, aside from the journey that you just shared with us, is there any particular journey that you will really also share in this book that you think has a big part of who you are?
Oh, definitely. Lots of journeys. I would say lots of journeys. So wait for either someone to write that book or I will.
I will definitely get a copy of that book. I hope I will see that on on Amazon and I'll order that book. But are you
For
thinking of
sure.
writing your like a memoir or a book about yourself or your journeys in life?
Well, at the moment, to answer that question, yes, I do have a book on some of my complex change management journeys that I've been implementing. So I did start writing, but it's not getting to the point it should be. And then life happens. There's no procrastination there, but life happens. And I was hoping I could do that in the past 2 months with a short break. But then again, life happens and things change, your plans change. So, no, it hasn't happened yet, but I'm hopeful I can bring it to some shape or form, at least by the year end this year.
Wow. Congratulations in advance. So please let me know, Sarika.
Definitely. I'm going to send that to you anyway. So, for sure.
There you go. Once again, so Sarika, if some of our life mates out there listening to us wants to reach out, wants to maybe avail of your services as a coach and as an instructor, how can they reach? How can they contact you?
So definitely quite a few ways to reach out to me. One is you can write to me, and that's literally write with two me, write to me at sarikakharbanda.com, which is sarikakhabanda.com. Or feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. There is only one Sarika Kharbanda as a lean change agent. So feel free to connect and drop me a message. I'll be happy to have a chat, coffee chat. Zoom's always available. So yeah, or let's jump onto some platform to have a chat.
Nice. I like that when you said there's only one Sarika.
There's only one Sarika Kharbanda who is a lean change agent there.
But do you still offer courses for those who are interested in agile or change management, Sarika?
Yes, so I do offer a number of courses if you are interested, and we put these out as public courses on modern change management, which is lean change management, a number of IC Agile courses also in HR, leadership, and yeah, feel free to get in touch if you would like to onboard those journeys too.
Thank you
And
so
if you
much.
do not see, and if you do not see some of those courses, feel free to just write and ask, hey, when are you running the next one? And I'll be happy to answer that.
There you go. Once again, thank you so much, Sarika, for your time, for saying yes to my invitation. I really appreciate that.
It's been a pleasure, Arnie, with all those interesting questions that and conversations that we've had. It's been a very long time, and I'm so delighted to be on your show today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And to my light mates, if you like and you learn a lot from this episode, please download, share, listen, especially to your families and friends, because learning is not just for you, but for everyone. And always remember that learning without action is just information, but learning with action, that is transformation. Again, thank you so much. And until my next episode, please listen and learn.